So, time for our next session, Code with Me Behind the Scenes. And I'm pleased to welcome Kirill to present it. Hi, Kirill. It's a pleasure to have you present today.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Hi all.
Kirill leads the Code with Me project at JetBrains, and he believes that things we do can literally change the world. And he also loves nature, especially Russian North. And we'll talk about what do you exactly mean by that, because I don't know about that one. Talking about the session, Code with Me is one of the most anticipated features that we have released recently. And it's much more relevant in the challenging times we are now, the new normal, as we say, when most of the development teams are distributed and they collaborate remotely. Code with Me simplifies this process within your favorite IDE, of course, IntelliJ IDEA. So let's hear from Kirill. How does this magic work? What's the story behind it? And the plans and opportunities for this technology. The floor is all yours, Kirill.
Thank you. Hi all. Such an awesome introduction. I don't know what to add, to be honest, but I'll try to uncover something behind the scenes in this presentation, this talk. So, yeah, my name is Kir. I'm leading the Code with Me project, and apart from that, I'm also leading Rider, which is a .NET IDE at JetBrains. Code with Me was released quite a while ago. You can try it out today, both from the marketplace, and it is bundled already in 21.1 EAP cycle. There are hundreds of thousands of users of Code with Me right now. But what differs Code with Me from all the rest of the competitors is its feature richness. It is a very, very feature-rich product. For instance, a Code with Me guest, has no requirements whatsoever. So it can be a totally clean machine without any of our IDs installed. And nevertheless, all the features which are shown in this GIF, all these guest features, will be available. And these are most of the IntelliJ goodies we get used to, right? So it's like code completion, most sophisticated navigations, projects view, debugging, and lots of others. How is that possible? How does this magic work? So I will a little bit uncover how did we came to our architectural and technical solutions, and to understand why did we come to these solutions. We'll start a bit from the history. And the history of Code with Me surprisingly starts with a product called Rider. Rider is one of the youngest IntelliJ-based IDE. We released in 2017, I guess. And although there are lots of wonderful IntelliJ-based IDEs, there is one fundamental thing that differs Rider from the rest. And this thing is technical, and this thing is about two processes in a single IDE, at least two processes. So Rider was the first IDE that consists of actually two processes in it. The front-end process of the IntelliJ and the back-end process of ReSharper host. So we did it to get all of the ReSharper features already in 1.0 version, not to re-implement all these features from scratch. But it turned out that this approach also gave us some performance benefits, which is quite interesting. So the major performance issues for the world of IDEs, if you didn't know, is more or less related to the smoothness of the UI thread. How the smoothness of the UI thread can be affected very easily. You can write some bad algorithms which consumes a lot of CPU on the UI thread. You can make a lot of contention, or garbage collection can also affect the smoothness of the UI thread. And it turns out that all these two major issues are, the garbage collection and the smoothness of UI thread, were solved by this architecture because both are now performed on the backend process, but doesn't anyhow affect the smoothness of the UI process, which is essential. But the most interesting part about this architecture was the protocol, because this architecture implies the synchronization of all the view models of the features. And the view models are very different. So for example, you have the view model of the alt-enter, the view model of code completion, unit tests, and lots of other features. These are very different view models with their own specifics. And we gotta have a very rich, sophisticated, I would say, protocol in order to bind these view models. Also, keep in mind that both backend and frontend have their own very complicated life cycle. So this also makes things quite hard. So we developed our own protocol, which called RD. And basically RD, which is open source, by the way, this protocol solved all the above issues. I will show a little bit of this protocol from the development perspective, how we, the developers, use this protocol, because it seems like it sounds like something magical, and I will show some details. Do you see my screen? Do you see the IntelliJ? I hope, yes.
No, Kirill, I still see your presentation.
You see the presentation. Oh, okay. Good. Is it fine, right? No?
Yes, I can see your the IDE now.
Oh, good. So we described the RG entities with the Kotlin because we love Kotlin, and it's really cool. And all the view models are described in a Kotlin special form, in a Kotlin DSL, because it's very easy to write a Kotlin-based DSL. So, for example, the search everywhere. So this well-known feature for distributed IDE, for Rider, for Code with Me, it performs in a way when all the items are being calculated on the backend. And only the view model representation of this result will be transferred and synced with this protocol with the front end. So we gotta define the view model structure of, for example, search everywhere feature. And as you can see, it is very easy to define. So for example, what do I have here? I have search pop-ups. The search pop-up contains with field, source, property, with some calls. So RD protocol supports not only stateful entities, but also stateless transient communication, like RPC-like communication. Like, give me these items. Search pop-up consists of current pop-up kind, or for example, search item data. As you may notice, go to declaration works because it's not like some magical DSL, but this is a pure Kotlin. And search item data consists of all the view model items which relate to what we actually see here. Later on, we generate the counterparts, real counterparts for all of these models. So for example, the go-to model will be generated for the front end and the back end, and later on will be used for from a real IntelliJ code for the hosts. Okay, so let's get back to the presentation. Okay, just a second. Okay. In this regards, it will be interesting to compare the stateful approach for the distributed ID building and stateless. RD implies that we have a state. I mean, not just the protocol itself supports both. but the rider and code with me architecture. If we look at the stateful approach, we'll see that it's easier to port backend features because we got just to sync the view models. And in some cases, we'll skip lots of the events. So for example, if you, as a front end, connect to the backend and the backend fires thousands of events for a tree, you don't have to get all these events. You just have to observe the mutation of the state. So you will skip a lot of redundant calculation. In comparison with that, stateless approach gives also some opportunities. For example, you always know the acknowledgement for all of your actions. If you do, for example, go to declaration, you always know the consequences of a particular go to declaration. Another good aspect, I would say, a principal aspect of stateless communication is that features can perform even if the backend is dead. So it's fine. And if we'll summarize this, we will realize that the stateful approach implies a backend first architecture. And the stateless approach implies an architecture when the product is a front end and depends on the backend if it is existent or it's not. Now, both Rider and Code with Me are backend first products. They cannot perform without the backend. So this is the fundamental reason why we've chosen stateful approach for the protocol. By the way, it's quite technical talk and some things might be not clear for you. So I'm looking forward to answering all your questions after the presentation. Please ask them. So RG solves all the tasks we had. It's fast. It's both stateful and stateless. It binds both JVM and .NET runtimes and also the native runtime, and it's socket-based. And we're looking on some other ambitious tasks to do after Rider, and it seems that collaborative development, this famous issue with thousands of votes, was the next one. It was very interesting to do if we can bind with our RG protocol Code with Me parts. And we started to do the first prototypes. Remember the slide with Rider architecture? On the right side, there is a server, which is ReSharper host. What we got to do is to now build IntelliJ as a server. So IntelliJ should perform as a server for client. So we did this, and the next thing would be to actually implement the appropriate front end, which will be thin, and all the unnecessary things like indices and virtual file system will be stripped out from it. So this front end will be lightweight, thin, will perform faster, and will be downloadable. But that was just the beginning, only the beginning, because immediately we noticed lots of low-hanging problems. First is that Code with Me implies that lots of guests, lots of participants can be in the one session. And moreover, these guests are now connected with the host over the internet, not on the same local machine. Apart from that, apart from just porting our protocol, adjusting our protocol so it will be ready for internet, wild internet connection thing, we're lacking of multiplying document synchronization, like the same thing you may notice in, for example, Google Docs, when multiple collaborators write in the same document at the same time. And also the IntelliJ threading model was not prepared for that. What do I mean by threading model? And what do I mean by client ID? Let's illustrate it with an example of code completion. Code completion is a very actually complicated feature, very sophisticated feature of IntelliJ. It has thousands of little goodies, which actually make it so different in a positive way from its competitors. So it's IntelliJ code completion performs on multiple threads, and this is the simplified image I'm showing to you. But let's imagine that the guest, the front end asks the host to calculate completion. We start the UI thread to get this response. Then we would probably throttle it because we don't want to over-occupy the host's CPU. So we must group these events. So we invoke this completion calculation later, right? Then we dispatch the calculation to the background thread, right? Recalling the UI thread of an IDE, which is crucial and essential for its performance. So the code completion is, of course, calculated on the background thread. And when all the items will be calculated, we have to fall back to the UI thread to send them back to the guests. And then all of a sudden, we don't understand to which guest should we send these results. Because again, we have different guests and all of them can trigger the code completion, and the threading model is the same for IntelliJ. It would be too much to replicate the whole application pool thread per guest. So in order to fix this, we actually need to pass the client ID through all these complicated thread operations, like invoking something later or dispatching something to a background pool thread. There are a bunch of APIs in IntelliJ platform to do this. And what we got to do is to carefully pass the client ID through all of these APIs. And we did that. And now it is possible. Another stuff we implemented is actually event source based document synchronization. But not just documents, because apart from document synchronization, this is not pure Google Doc. You have to synchronize the caret, the selection. You have to synchronize actions and availability of these actions. For example, you can type something and then immediately press code completion with control space or go to declaration. All of these events must be synchronized together with the same event source-based approach. And it is working. It is working right now in Code with Me with all these rebases, with all these rollbacks, which is kind of amazing piece of technology. Apart from this, we've developed the Code with Me client. You could treat it as a product, but it's some sort of a dependable product only for Code with Me technology. It is downloadable, super lightweight. It is universal, so we don't have a Code with Me client for PHP Storm, Code with Me client for RubyMine, PHP client for IntelliJ, and all the others. We have the single one, yet it is customizable and it is personalized by a user's configuration files. So, for example, if I, as a guest, download Code with Me client, I should have my own key bindings, my own look and feel, my own settings, which I get used to, and I will get these XMLs from my locally installed IDEs and port them to my Code with Me client. And although I will be working with the host's code and with the host's content model, all the features, all the look and feel and key maps will be mine, which is amazing. Speaking of connections, we try to establish peer-to-peer connection where possible. Nevertheless, sometimes you just cannot establish peer-to-peer connection, and in this matter, we should pass all our traffic through our servers. So the interesting fact is that we have basically three types of wires, three types of connections. The first one is through our relays, which is the basic one. The second one is a direct connection, which is used for internet communications when you just have the direct IP address. And the second one is a punch-through like peer-to-peer communication. And of course, we try to use peer-to-peer wherever possible because it lowers down the load for our relays. All of these connections are end-to-end encrypted with the latest TLS. We also have ping fingerprints to make sure that the guest and the host are the same persons, and they can verify this via the secure channel. The next complicated stuff was that our feature should work across the world, not just in our office. Imagine that two people in Japan collaborating with each other through the relay, for example, where peer-to-peer is not possible, and the relay is only in Europe. In this case, the ping will be how many? 300, 400 milliseconds, which make the whole feature unusable and unpleasant. So we deployed the worldwide infrastructure with our relays. Also with the voice calls infrastructure. So the voice calls and the video calls also require some infrastructure to be done. This consists of video bridges. This consists of S-turn and turn servers, the specific servers to pass the media traffic through them. And also all of the above should be deployed on-premise installation, because Code With Me targets on-premise enterprise companies, which tend to say that, like, yes, we believe in TLS and end-to-end encryption. We would like to have all our traffic inside our internet, which is understandable. So all of the above is available on-premise installation. Yeah. So 21.1 will be released somewhere around, and apparently Code With Me will be available on some of the IDEs. We're working hard for the last half year to implement the missing functionality of perform the inline rename, the multi-card with. We are introducing the new tool window support for some build systems like Ant, Gradle, Maven, tool windows like services and messages, and also the project-wide problems tool window will be supported in 21.1. Some people were facing the problems with Follow Me, that Follow Me doesn't reflect all the pop-ups, and not all the features can be followed. So we addressed that as well. And of course, voice and video calls that we introduced. So all of the above is already implemented and will be delivered in 21.1. What's next? Of course, we will work more to make more features applicable for the client, for the guest experience. So we implement the missing tool windows. We will work hard to support Android Studio, and we will also concentrate on some cool team features. For example, if I'm writing in code somewhere, and this is not my code, this is someone other's piece of code, and I'm not sure how to do how to write something correctly. With the git blame, I could potentially understand who is the owner of this code and instantly either notify this person that I'm here, or even invite him right away with the code with me to assist me. All of these ideas are on the table, and we will be definitely working hard to make Code With Me experience even more collaborative in a friendly way. What is even more exciting is that based on Code With Me, we can deliver a remote development experience. What is remote development? Now, I'm not talking about any kind of collaboration. Let's imagine that I have my own development server, which is secure, which has all the source code, which is very powerful and has all the horsepowers in it, and which has some interesting and some scheduling, for example, which implies, for example, checking out the latest master every morning, building everything for me, and setting up all the indices ready for me. And then at 9 o'clock, when I'm open the client, which has no source code and which should not be a powerful laptop no more, instantly with this Code With Me like connection, I will get access to fully prepared development environment. This seems to be very challenging and very interesting for our users, and this is another way to go for us. Of course, it would be interesting for me to have not just a single remote development server, but a bunch of it. For example, I would like to have the freshest master branch, another of my feature branches, and another project, for example. And just with a single click, with 2 or 3 seconds, I will be connected to this environment and will be ready to go, which is quite cool, I find. So there are still some missing parts to make remote development work. Firstly, we gotta re-implement all the tool windows. We gotta somehow support these heavy functional dialogues like settings and the project structure and the rest. We gotta figure out the deployment model for this feature. And to make this remote development actually usable, I'm reminding that this is not just Code With Me 5 or 30-minute sessions. This is the experience the user should have for the whole day, for the whole working day. And if we're talking about that, much more of the refactorings and editing experience should be supported. So we're looking forward to delivering all of the above ideas, and as said in the introduction, I really believe that these things literally change the world in a better way. So, okay, if you have any questions, it will be my pleasure to answer them.
Thank you so much, Kirill. A lot of questions, and as usual, the chat moderators will already answer them. So I have a bunch of questions, use the ones which were already answered. So bits and pieces from those and other questions that we had. So the first one, if a developer is not using IntelliJ IDEA, can Code With Me be one of the top reasons why they would want to start using it?
Yes, for sure, because Code With Me helps for those, for example, who cannot work without pair programming practices. Today in a modern world, when lots of people are sitting home on lockdown and they just cannot do pair programming, Code With Me is the way to go. And this is the way for them to explore the IntelliJ ecosystem and its benefits.
Right. The other one is, have you found out other audience for Code with Me apart from the developers, like educators? And is it possible that there will be different types of clients for different types of users? For example, read only, or I don't know, some other features that you were thinking of.
There are lots of use cases for Code with Me, actually, lots of them. It's not just pair programming, it's mob programming, for example, which tend to be trendy today. It's debugging together. Of course, classrooms, guiding, mentoring, either for, I don't know, Unity, for example, Unity classroom, which teaches how to write C# code, or it can be just educational programs in the universities or schools. Another interesting use case is actually our new approach for interviewing for job positions. So instead of giving the test assignment and waiting for it and then replying yes or no, we can code together and see how the candidate actually writes the code and uses the IDE, which for me, for example, as a team lead would be, of course, of benefit. So there are difference of aspects and use cases for these features, and yeah, I think we'll try to support most of them in terms of both technical and marketing.
Probably you missed one of the questions, which was, and I love the interviewing part because there are so many, at times you think of so many use cases, but you kind of miss a few. And I see what you say, that you are interviewing the other person and you want to see how the person programs, not really the solution that they have, but the approach that they take. That's really important, I would say. And you can really see that when the person is working with you in the IDE on the same problem. So that kind of is really helpful.
Yes.
So are you also thinking about different kind of clients for such use cases, or would we see just one which would cater to all the use cases?
What of the use cases? Say what?
So the different use cases that you mentioned. So now, as of now, we have just one client. In future, are you planning to add different kinds of client which could have, let's say, different features so that it's more appropriate for that use case? Is that already on? Are you thinking about that?
Code with Me supported multiple clients from the day one. So you can connect to the single host with up to 50 clients. It is supported already.
No, I was talking more in terms of the features that go in that particular client according to the use case, but I think that's okay. So the other one, you mentioned that code completion is much more complicated that it might seem. And so was it a surprise that a simple feature like this was hard to solve in Code with Me, or something that the team already knew was hard?
We knew that it was hard, and actually rider experience, that's why I started with this rider history. Rider experience helped us a lot because we already did it for rider. And we knew how we're gonna do it for Code with Me. Nevertheless, it was hard. Again, now we treated IntelliJ as a server, not ReSharper host as a server. It was a challenge, but we did it, and I think it works. It's not like 100% perfect, I know, but I think it's far better than all of our competitors.
Yes, that of course that makes a difference. So what challenges do you see with the adoption of Code with Me, especially when all the developers are not using IntelliJ? Because a lot of comments on the chat were that my team members, they are using some other IDE. So even though I want to use IntelliJ and Code with Me, the team members are not kind of okay to use it. So do we see those challenges, and how are we kind of addressing them?
Yes, we do, and this is why we introduced Code with Me client. As I said in the beginning, the guest should know should not have any of our IntelliJ-based IDEs installed. For example, I can develop an IntelliJ. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, can develop an VS Code, for example. I can give the Code With Me link session, and they can connect to me. So no requirements whatsoever, which is cool. And maybe I think this will help for Code With Me adoption, because more and more people which are not using IntelliJ will be still able to connect to their friends and colleagues and code together. And by doing this, they will, I really believe they will fall in love with the IntelliJ ecosystem and with all its features and all these goodies.
Yes, absolutely. We have, as we know, that we have 2 days of event, and we are seeing so many because we've been working with IntelliJ for so long, and even us, we are figuring out so many new features, so many dimensions to a simple term like productivity or so many other things. And I'm sure anyone who starts using it would, of course, fall in love with the features. So there's one question which Trisha wanted to ask. So let me add her to the stream so that she can ask, because she has been working with Code With Me for quite a long time.
So you added me to the stream, and then someone literally rang on the front doorbell right now. Can I go and get the front door? Give me 1 second.
So that's how the online events go with working from home, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a parcel right now. I'm sorry, I gotta go.
Okay. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I've been waiting for a delivery for 2 freaking days, and it happens to turn up right now. So I had a question. I think I know the answer, and I think I know why the answer is, but it's a question that gets asked quite a lot by the community as well. Obviously, the IntelliJ, the Code With Me client, the light client, has a lot of advantages. The stuff that you were talking about, like you don't need to have the IDE installed. You don't need to have any of that kind of hardware. You just kind of use the client. But what if you actually want to use IntelliJ IDEA as the client? Is there any intention to be able to do that, or any value in doing that? Or hold on.
So this is an amazing question, by the way. So there are 3 points where I can answer. Yeah, cool. Congrats. So first of all, I think that the overall UX experience will be kind of messy. Just imagine I have my own IntelliJ, and you, Trisha, invite me to participate in your to code with you. So in my own IDE, I'll have my own project, my own files, and your files, and tool window which relate to your content model, the editors which relate to your code. Should run what? Your application or my application? Debug should debug. Like, it's kind of very messy. I could do it in a separate window, but in this regards, it doesn't differ too much from what we're delivering. And technically, sharing the same application for both of this window frame, which will be a technical mess. So one Code With Me session will affect another my normal development experience. Moreover, there is a problem with protocol. Because if you have different versions of your IDE, they have different protocol versions. And anyways, you have to have the same, with absolutely the same protocol version, so the both counterparts will communicate. So, like both TeamViewer, Zoom, it's like an industry standard when you download the fresh client in order to have a proper work of the tool. We do the same. I believe that once we will have more and more features in this light client, these questions will fade away. Like, for example, in 21.1, we're introducing lots of missing tool windows. And I think I understand these concerns, but I hope product-wise they will be solved eventually, or are already solved for a majority of our users.
Mala, do you mind if I ask a bunch more questions?
Absolutely not.
And I was going to say something like that, actually. I think that when I started using Code with Me right at the beginning, and some of the very early adopters, I think that the desire to have the full IDE came from the fact that the early client was very basic. And I think that as we're seeing more and more features added, it will feel less like a thin client. It'll feel more like working inside the IDE. I think that it makes a lot of sense to me to have the separation between this is my IDE, this is my project, it's all set up, it's all local, versus I'm coding with someone else's project on someone else's machine, and I'm kind of working with their environment. So it does make sense to me. But back in the early days, I could definitely see why, and I had this thought myself, like, I want my IDE, I want my IntelliJ the way I want it. But as it's getting more fully featured, it is becoming more familiar, more like the IDE.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I had loads of questions. I'm sorry, like Helen and I have been using Code with Me a bit for both for Java programming, but also for we've actually been doing pair writing, which you wouldn't necessarily think that one would pair write on a blog post or a book, but it turns out to be a really interesting use case, especially because with pairing. So when I was doing pair programming, you'd have like a navigator and a driver. So the driver, when you're sat at the same keyboard, one person is obviously typing and the other person is navigating, is making notes as to what needs to happen next. Don't forget to do this. Like, we're going to need to, and occasionally jumping when necessary. The interesting experience about Code with Me is that it's not quite the same as pair programming, but I think it's opening up my eyes to kind of like pair programming plus. Because, for example, Helen can be making notes in the same document about like what she wants to write about in that document, while I do like maybe like full sentences or whatever. And you can't do that in pair programming because you only have like one keyboard, right? Only one person can write in the file at the same time. And I was finding it really interesting with Code with Me. It opens up totally different ways of working. A real blend between the pair programming thing and what I've done before with remote collaboration is really small commits, check something in, the other person downloads it, gets it out, and then, makes some changes to that. But Code with Me is very different. Code with Me is like, I can be working on this file. It's a bit like using Google Docs, I guess. I can be working on this file at the same time as someone else is working on this file, and we can work literally on the same code at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely agree. We use Code with Me by ourselves in the team every day. And there are so much of benefits we gain. For example, when someone watches while I'm coding, or we navigate through the code together, then I can ask my colleague that, could you please write a test? Okay, no. Could you please do something while I'm exploring another piece of code in another? This is impossible to do in a common pair programming when there are two chairs on the table and just one monitor. And here there are a bunch of opportunities we can do. Simultaneous programming together, literally typing in different on the same file together. One is exploring, another one is exploring, like, for example, 3 or 4 times, which happened to me last month. Hey, we don't know how to do this. We're gonna find the appropriate API. Who is the fast? Who will find it fastest? And because the navigation and find path works the same way on the client, the way it works on the host, it is real. So it is possible to do such things. Yeah.
I think what surprised me when I first started using it, because I was expecting to use it the same way I pair program at the same computer, the fact that you can follow what the other person is doing, which is kind of like traditional pair programming, where you're driving and I'm navigating, I follow what you're doing and I'm thinking about what I'm doing. And the fact that one might not follow the other person was like a mind-blowing thing. Like, I don't have to watch you code. I could actually be coding in the same project in a different file at the same time. And my initial reaction was, why would I ever want to do that? But I think like in a few months' time, I'm going to be like, how did I ever not do this before?
Exactly.
A thing.
Yes.
It's really opening up my mind to like totally different ways of collaborating with, especially on coding.
Yeah, agree.
And so I had more questions. So obviously I had a lot of comments there because I've been really interested in how it works. And because sorry, Mallow.
Let me ask just one question, and then probably I will drop off the stream then.
Okay, you don't have to go.
Kirill, you mentioned that you love nature and especially Russian North, and I was really intrigued by what you mean by that. So this is not related to code with me.
Oh yeah, this is just a special piece of nature, Russian North. It's a very, calm. It's not very exotic, as you may notice, in like no palms, no parrots, no elephants whatsoever. Just endless forest and some hills, maybe no mind-blowing mountains. Nevertheless, it's astonishingly beautiful. And as a matter of fact, I made a trip to the Russian North in January. It was like a little bit warmer than usual. It was -30, not -45 Celsius. But there were no network access whatsoever. Even the mobile network was off. And being there for a couple of days, for 5 days, calms you in an amazing way. You just stop finding, stop digging yourself to find another notification. You start to breathe slowly. You start to think deeply. And the nature around just helps and supports you in this direction. This is somewhat magical there in the north, and this is why I wrote down this stuff.
I feel more relaxed just hearing that.
Oh yes. So Trisha, I would drop off the stream, and you both can continue to talk.
Okay, all right then. Thanks, Mallow. It's really helpful.
Thanks, Kirill. That was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, I just have so many questions and comments about code with me. One of the things I wanted to kind of like areas I wanted to discuss. So one of the differences, so there are, as we've already said, there are differences between like pair programming in front of the same computer with the same thing, the same hardware, and code with me. One of the things that I've struggled with a little bit, and I'm not sure if it's a feature that needs to be added in code with me or a way I need to change the way that I think about stuff, is there is a difference between following someone in code with me versus screen sharing. So in a screen share, for example, I can see the dialogues that pop up. I can see like literally everything that they can see, the errors that they see, everything. But when I'm following them in code with me, I can't see exactly what they're seeing. I can only sort of see the results of what they're doing. Does that sort of make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So as I briefly said this in my presentation, that in 21.1, more and more dialects and tool windows will be synced and will be shown for a follower. So, for example, if a lead triggers a code completion or search everywhere, I'm not precisely sure about all of these features, but most of them in 21.1 will be shown for all of the followers, which is actually very useful for mentoring, guiding, for example, hey, see my code completion or see my search everywhere. Absolutely understandable. We just working that, it's in development. The one thing I want to emphasize, which makes code with me much more convenient rather than typical screen sharing solutions, is how easy it is to follow one another. And if there are multiple guests, 3 or 4, anyone can force others to follow them, or just say, hey, please follow me, I'm here, because we're in a voice call. And it will be done just in a matter of seconds with clicking on the circle up above. This is super convenient. And also keep in mind that screen sharing solutions, they consume lots of CPU on both ends. And sometimes this really affects the application itself.
Yeah. I misunderstood when you were talking about dialogues before. I thought you meant like, because I know sometimes with the client, not all the dialogues are supported for various reasons. I thought you meant that when I'm writing code, I'll see more dialogues, but no, you mean as a follower, I'll see more of what you're doing. Yeah, that would solve a lot of problems, definitely.
Yeah, just to correct myself, you will not see everything. For example,
No.
you cannot see the application. For example, if you're developing desktop application, you launch the desktop application, Code cannot mirror this application, cannot transfer the view model of this application. So, but we will do screen sharing. We'll deliver screen sharing in the later releases for Code with Me, for those who want to share the desktop application they are testing right now, they're debugging right now.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good
So
point.
Code with Me will have both following logic, which I described above, and screen sharing for those which really need it.
Oh, that's really cool. What you've mentioned though leads me to another thing which I had not thought about as a user of Code with Me, which was all around the security implications. So if I'm using my client and you're writing code on your machine, I thought that I just obviously want access to everything that you're doing, but the security thing has been obviously quite a big concern that you have to get absolutely right, because I can't just run any old command on your terminal on your machine, right?
Yes. So we think very, very careful about security because it's super important nowadays. First of all the connections are end-to-end encrypted. We have fingerprints, like when you're calling someone on WhatsApp and you have this funny smiles like bananas, stop sign, or I don't know, some other emoji, and you say, hey, do you see the same via the secure channel? We have the same as well. Also, we have the special permission management. So the default option is a read-only option for Code with Me, where the guest cannot modify any of the host's code, cannot debug or run anything, because actually debugging can trigger the evaluation, and evaluation can trigger anything. So there are a bunch of security places when you can trigger something unwanted on the host machine. So all these kinds of activities are gone to our full access mode, which is not default. And when you trigger full access mode, you'll see the red disclaimer, and the user, the host, which shares the session, should understand and realize how important is that. And for the enterprise companies, we deliver on-premise solution. So they will be sure that no traffic whatsoever will go outside of their intranet. This is crucial for them.
Yeah, definitely. I can see, so many organizations, they want to run stuff on-prem. They're not going to run it anywhere else. They don't want to run it through someone else's network.
Right.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Oh yeah. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was when the video calls, the calls and the video calls entered into Code with Me. I think someone said, "Oh yeah, I just got a bit carried away and I just implemented video calling inside Code with Me." Love the idea of that. But that made a lot of difference, because before we were having to use Code with Me and another unnamed video calling piece of software, and potentially have Code with Me. You have the screen share and the call at the same time. Now I'm getting to the point where maybe we just don't need any of that, and we'll just do all of our team meetings in IntelliJ IDEA.
Yeah, so just share the link and that's it. No other messengers, no other voice calls, video calls. Just share one link and click on this link on the guest's side. This is the goal.
It's been really, really helpful because without when we were doing it without the calls, it was obviously you could see what someone else is doing, but the whole point about pair programming is constant communication. Like, I'm doing this, I'm thinking about that. What do you think about the other? And you can do that over chat, but it's just not the same. So once we got the video calls and stuff, it was like, yeah, almost proper pair programming. It's so close to being my one go-to tool for everything now. You can tell I'm really excited about it. It's been so cool because I've been wanting to. So I did pair programming years ago when I worked at LMAX, and that's how I learned IntelliJ IDEA, by pair programming with people. And I've been working remotely even before I joined JetBrains since 2013. So for like 8 years, I've been like, I really, really, really want this feature in IntelliJ IDEA. I'm so excited about it.
I'm glad you're excited.
It's cool. It's very cool. We've been using it a bunch in our team, and it's been really helpful. So that was the other thing when you were talking about the value of doing like the screen sharing type stuff. Sometimes, because obviously a lot of what I do is I'm like, here's a feature in IntelliJ IDEA. This is how you use it. And so, you know, using IntelliJ IDEA to demo that instead of someone else's tool is just like it's been really, really helpful. And that's my husband, by the way. Right. I think. Oh, well, we're nearly time to wrap up. Is there anything else you need to share? Or maybe I need to check, see if there's any other questions. Hold on a second. Where are the questions? I've got so many documents open. Okay. Oh, yes. I don't think we asked this question. So you talked a bit about what's coming. Oh, sorry, Mala. Yes, Mala, have you got any more questions?
Yes, so there was a question regarding, you mentioned that you and Helen were working on it, like joining as a participant command in IntelliJ, but in Toolbox. So developers don't have to download client or open a project in IntelliJ IDEA to use it. So because you used that part, so if you could elaborate on what the challenges were.
There was a question, wasn't there, on YouTube, wasn't it? Like, can you use Toolbox to open the link or to join a Code with Me session?
No, Toolbox doesn't support that. But I don't understand what for, because you just can click on the link and either open already downloaded thin client immediately, or you can download it automatically in a matter of seconds.
Yeah,
so
that's
I don't quite understand the use case. So
maybe it was asked by someone who didn't understand that you just literally don't need any software on your computer at all. You just click on the link.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions, Mala?
No, I think we're done with the questions, and we are also kind of reaching the time limit. So we have to thank Kirill now and invite the next host.
Thank you so much, Kirill.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.